Hi there, welcome back to our short videos on business studies. We are still in the topic of human resource management, and today we will be looking at employment contracts. A quick recap of what human resource management means. It is a strategic approach to ensure that there is an effective management of the workforce so that the organization or the people in the organization can become productive and remain competitive. Now, if you recall in the past, in the topic of human resource management, HR does a few things, right? And besides hiring and selecting the right people into the organization, they also prepare documents called employment contracts. Okay, so upon selection of the right people to the right job, there must be a formality being done. A formality would mean a preparation of an employment contract so that both parties, basically the employer and the potential employee, are clear about the rules and regulations set by the employer for the employees and what are the simple rights of the employees as well that should be agreed upon. Alright, so this document is normally legally binding. Okay, and in normal circumstances, an employee would need to accept the employment contract before joining the company officially on the first day of work. So this is because both parties needs to be clear on what is stated on paper so that they both have a clear direction of what is to happen in the company and how to go about it should there be any issues that arise from it. So basically it's a document that entailing what covers the employees and what not, and what covers the employer as well and whatnot. Okay, so in general, let's talk about the type of contracts available, all right? And there's a few: a temporary contract, part-time contract, flexi contract, or an outsourcing contract. Now, what is a temporary contract? A temporary contract is a contract that lasts for a fixed term, normally a shorter term period like 6 months or so. Okay, so you may be sometimes working for a company where they only need you to work for them for a fixed number of period, and it may not be renewable after that. So it is a temporary contract. When you look at a part-time contract, which most of you may be familiar with, your contract is less than the normal full working week. So if you were to work in Starbucks for that matter, maybe you're working for 8 hours a week and that 8 hours may be spread to 2 hours per day or something like that. And of course, your salary or your wage being paid for a part-time basis is much lesser than working for a full week, unless, of course, you are working completely for all the days in the week with a higher number of hours. Now, a flexi contract for that matter is a contract that allows staff to be called in at times convenient to employers and employees. So there are flexi contracts where employers may need additional manpower or people to support the business in times of peak season and when they require this additional people to come on board, right? So it can be at a moment's notice, an ad hoc requirement. So we call it flexi. It could be anytime, any day, as and when the employers require, and sometimes employees may also mention on the times that they are available to be called in for a flexi contract. Now, an outsourcing contract is basically a situation where the staff, all right, is not hired directly by the company where he or she is working from. Okay, it's normally he or she is hired from another company, but is placed in company B, all right, to work for that company on an outsourcing method. Okay, so staff A belongs to company A but not company B, but working or placed in company B to carry out some business functions. So there you go, you have a couple of various types of contracts. Now let's look at what is inside an employment contract. Okay, now the components of a employment contract includes the responsibilities that the individual needs to carry out, basically what the job is about and what person A would need to do in a particular role. In the employment contract, there's also a component called, or a section for, working hours. So the employment document will stipulate the working hours for the individual to carry out his or her duties. Could it be an 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. working arrangement, or a 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. working arrangement, or is it more on a flexible working arrangement? These working hours will be stipulated accordingly. Now, there's also a very important portion called the rate of pay, or how much will this person be paid on a monthly basis. Depending on the type of contract that they're in, the amount will be stipulated in the employment contract. Fourthly, there is also two very important items inside the employment contract, which is basically annual leave and medical leave, right? Annual leave refers to the number of days that the employee is entitled to earn or entitled to use for a particular year. So you would have, a standard of 12 days per year where the employee will be able to utilize these leaves as and when required. Medical leave is on the basis of an employee who falls sick would be able to apply for medical leave, of course with the proper documentation to support, like a medical certificate and so forth. And finally, you also have the termination notice. What does this mean? This means that an employee who wishes to leave the organization cannot do so immediately, just like that, but there is a clause to stipulate the number of periods, the number of months, right, or weeks that the employee will need to give notice to the employer before he or she leaves the organization. Okay, so this is to protect the rights of both the employer and the employee as well. So there you go, you have a few components in the employment contract, and we've also covered the type of contracts in this current slide. Okay, so let's look at a recap of what you should be able to understand at the end of this short video. You should know what is an employment contract to be able to define it, and the various types of contracts, and what are the components or features of an employment contract. And we have come to the end of today's short lesson on employment contract. If you have questions or concerns, please look at the screen right now to take down this email address, teach@savage.com.my. Please do send in your questions or concerns to me. If you find that this video is useful to you and you know of a friend or two who would benefit from it, please feel free to share and like and comment where you need. Thank you so much for listening in and watching in. Have a pleasant day ahead.